Hello, my name's Karen Hustler and I'm the Assistant Director of Fellowship and Awards at Advance HE. Accreditation Criteria 3 is all about the support and guidance that participants receive. Now this might be in the form of written guidance, and of course you'll be thinking about making everything clear in your participant facing guidance and also trying to encourage people to want to engage with it. There may also be support from people within their faculty or department, maybe a mentor, or it may just be that the programme team themselves or the scheme team are putting on some activities in order to provide additional support. So that could be something like a writing retreat. So it doesn't matter to us what type of support participants are getting, but they are going to need support in order to make sense of the professional standards framework and the requirements for fellowship, which are quite complicated. It's really important that they get a good understanding of this, because once they've got their fellowship, they hopefully will use fellowship and the professional standards framework as part of their career development as they progress. And it could be that they might leave a programme having achieved fellowship at Descriptor 2 and then be aiming towards Descriptor 3 and senior fellowship over the next 3 or 4 years. So if they understand how to make links between what they do with their teaching and learning practice, the standards framework and fellowship, then actually it will be more powerful than them doing a programme where actually things are not very well explained to them on those fronts. This is a documentary submission, so whatever you do in workshops, we won't know about that. We don't want to see your PowerPoint slides for individual sessions. We'll be looking at the general overview that participants receive in a programme handbook or in a scheme handbook, or perhaps in a selection of things that are on your VLE, which might be a Moodle or a Blackboard type platform. Where you have got things not in a handbook format, but they are on a VLE format instead, don't try and put these into some form of a handbook. Instead, gather the relevant documents together and give us a narrative that just explains what order to read things in. So it may be that you have a collection of different Word documents that are hosted on a VLE site, and you have a sort of navigation guide at the front of that, so that the panellists who are reviewing your submission will understand what it is they're seeing. The guidance document, the Guide to Addressing the Criteria, sets out the level of information detail that we require for the accreditation process. And if that level of information isn't present, then the panel will be setting conditions around that. So it's really important that you read both the policy and the guidance document as you progress. So once you've started to write your accreditation submission, I would recommend that you actually think about the participant guidance before you start to think about the infrastructure and narrative that you're going to write about in the submission template. And once you've written the participant handbooks or the pro formas that reviewers use, then the narrative really, as it's set out in the guidance, just covers all the bits that you wouldn't want to tell the participants about. So that might be about the frequency of training that you have in place for mentors, for example. You'll want the mentors to know about that, but you probably wouldn't tell the participants. So when you're thinking about Criterion 3, it's really important to have clear guidance that's consistent across all the documents you're putting together. Simple things like page numbers will help everybody to navigate that far more easily. And I would recommend making sure that participants can also see the guidance that reviewers and mentors receive, because that will help them to understand how everything fits together. And if you've told the participants about something, then you can just direct the mentors to that section of the guidance without having to repeat it for them. The other part of Criterion 3 is making sure that everyone who is supporting participants or reviewing their applications receives regular training in UK PSF related CPD and around the fellowship and the standards of fellowship and the judgment process. So that links into Criteria 1D, where the institution is responsible for monitoring and managing that part of the process as well, and the resource in place to support participants. And that will help you to see how all these criterion do actually fit together, even though we are reviewing each one separately. So we will expect that your mentors may not be fellows, although ideally they would be, but they're the right people to drive the development of the staff who are participating in that programme or scheme, and that you have a way of regularly updating them with information around the judgment process and the standards required so that they're giving the right kind of advice to their mentees. So under Criterion 3, we're also looking to see that the programme team or the scheme team hold the correct category of fellowship for the type of programme or scheme that they are supporting. So, for example, we would want anyone who is operating a scheme that is awarding fellowship to have a minimum of fellowship, or if they're supporting people towards senior fellowship, that they have the senior fellowship. So our accreditation policy sets out our requirements, and in particular as well for the reviewer requirements. So you'll find that in section 4.4 of the accreditation policy.